afternoon and welcome to the Maryland Women's Heritage Center. I'm Diana Bailey, Executive Director of the Center, and here with me today is Helen Holton. Helen has a lot of jobs, but one of her jobs is she's a member of our Board of Directors, but she's also been a longtime City Council member. So welcome, Helen.
Thank you, Diana. It's great to be here.
Good. Well, we're excited that you're finally here at the Center for this production of Her Story. So why don't you start with kind of a little bit about your backstory before you got into politics and before you got into the gender equity activities. So are you from Baltimore originally?
No, I'm not. My family's originally from Virginia, the Tidewater area. We migrated to Maryland, largely Baltimore, as a result of racism and Jim Crow and, you know, the whole southern piece. But we have landed in Baltimore and made great strides. It's interesting because I grew up at an early age understanding that being female and being black was like a double challenge in America. But I come from a family of academicians, educators.
Of course.
And what's interesting is that I grew up thinking that going to college was the natural progression after high school. Little did I know that was not the case. But I've been political since I was a teenager, starting stumping on campaigns when people still wore straw hats.
Really?
And went door to door, you know, doing lit drops, those things
Was
that
it
are foreign
for
to us.
candidates or was it
It was
for
for
voting rights?
candidate.
For
I'm going to
candidates.
tell you who it was. I still remember. It was for Ted Venetoulis when he ran for county exec of Baltimore County. I was a Baltimore City resident. Some friends had this idea, hey, look, this is what we can do. It was the summer, so we were out of school, and there began my career into the political foray. Fast forward, I have an aunt who ran for office, and I worked on her campaign, and that gave me the ability to see what it's like to run from the inside. She did not win the first time, but she won the second time, and she's still a sitting member of the Maryland General Assembly today. Senator Dolores Kelly, yes, and has done just so much for women's issues, children's issues, health issues, and so watching, you know, she's, as I say, she's my #1 fan and my #1 mentor politically.
And she's mentored other women, not just family members.
And continues to, you know, continues to. I won't tell her age, but, you know, as an octogenarian, she's still going strong. And so that's how I began the journey. And it really was more about impacting and making a difference in my community. What did that look like? It looked like, you know, having a voice. Oh, well, you know, if I got elected to the city council, I'd have the mayor's ear and be able to share with him things about small minority women-owned businesses that I just, as then I was a certified MWBE in the city of Baltimore. And I just did not have a sense that the administration really understood the struggles and the challenges of small, local, minority women business enterprises.
Was she for the mayor then?
Kirk Schmoke was the mayor.
Schmoke was the mayor. Okay.
And the interesting thing about that is, for me, it was really a community issue, a small business issue, a local issue, that I didn't think, you know, and I had this idea, well, you know, if I get the mayor's ear, I can share the benefit of my knowledge and wisdom as a CPA, an MBA, a business owner, to make that climate better. Well, lo and behold, I threw my hat in the ring in a sea of 19 candidates vying for 3 seats in an independent campaign, and got elected. And I said, wow, okay, here we go.
What do you think your message was at that time that really resonated to voters that got you elected? What was it? Was it small business? Was it you were a female candidate? What do you think was the draw? Not the draw, but you clearly were a smart candidate, but
I'm
what do you
going to
think made a difference?
I'm going to say it was my passion, my hard work, and my commitment to serve, which continue to be the hallmark of who I am. And so I did get elected, and there I was, a freshman council person. And in my first year, I learned a lot. I spent a lot of hours there. It was not uncommon to find me in City Hall 11, 12, 1 o'clock in the morning pouring over papers because, of course, I couldn't do these things during the day because I was out busy.
Right.
No, I was out busy being the council person. And so I learned in my first year that being a council person and being a business owner were not mutually compatible. And so I gave up full-time business owner and took part-time jobs to support
Sure.
being a council person. But interestingly enough, I had to learn to become political. My focus when I got there was to care for the people, to be a voice for the people, and to make community better.
What was one of the issues that you worked on that you're proud of that may have had a sort of a contentious start, but you were, through your communication skills, through your passion, through your networking, you were able to resolve that issue for the benefit of the community?
I think one of the greatest pieces of legislation that I spearheaded was the commercial non-discrimination policy. It was the first of its kind in the nation, the strongest, to be approved by a body and signed into law. And basically, what it did was it supported small minority women-owned businesses that, you know, being a subcontractor to a prime, that when you had major contractors that in government contracting, they always had to have an MWBE requirement,
Right.
in Baltimore at least.
Right.
And they go out and seek small minority women business enterprises. But they did not use those same businesses in non-government business.
Oh.
And so what this bill did was, it had a whistleblower provision, you know, so it had safeguards to protect those who want to bring these issues to light. But it basically said, if you're a prime contractor, majority, usually white male, and you utilize these small minority and women business enterprises to do what you do for government contracting, but you give no consideration to them in commercial contracting.
In everyday
everyday
consideration.
That's a problem. Because, you know, in Baltimore, we have very few Fortune 500 companies, very few large businesses. So our base is really small business.
Yes, continues
Well,
to be.
in order to build capacity and to grow, you need more than government contracting. And all throughout my career, I always said to small businesses, do not make government contracting the bread and butter of your business. Make it the icing on the cake. Don't make it the meat on the plate. And in that way, you have the potential to grow and be a prime contractor one day, a big business, and to really add to the employment base, the economic base, because what we know is that more local businesses hire more local people.
Right. Especially ones that are skilled or experienced.
Absolutely.
Right.
Even with job opportunities. Baltimore's always been rich in apprenticeship programs, youth works programs, things of that nature to give up-and-comers an opportunity.
Did you ever work with the Women Entrepreneurs of Baltimore?
I did.
I thought you did. So tell me about your role there.
Oh my gosh. It was in the mid-90s. And I was one of the evaluators that poured over the applications.
I think that's when we first met.
And interviewed some of those young women who came in. And I mean, there are people I know today that are successful business owners because they got their start through Women Entrepreneurs of Baltimore. And I think my passion has always been how to support women. I woke up one day and realized, you know, I'm a CPA, I'm an elected official, and an ordained minister. 3 very heavily male-dominated fields, professions. I said, how did I end up here? You know, what about those other ones that you find lots of women in? No. And so I decided it was a part of the divine plan of my life that someone needed to be a strong advocate that wasn't afraid to stand up and speak out for inclusion. And so I kind of live my life today really committed and understanding the purpose of my life is really to be an advocate for justice, equity, and inclusion of all people in all walks.
Well, I know that in your spare time, you also carry that message. So you've been a member of the Commission for Women. You've been a member, of course, of the board here at the Women's Heritage Center. So how have you translated all those passions to maybe some policy activities or to promoting sort of the mission of those nonprofit organizations as well, or any other nonprofits you wanted to mention?
Well, it's always been about inclusion and opportunity. So when I was chair of the Maryland Commission for Women, so I came in as a member and then was elected to be the chair. One of the things we did a symposium for Maryland women and helping to connect them to resources, whether it was about domestic violence, whether it was about getting back to school, whether it was about child care, health care, employment opportunity. And I think these are the building blocks that build lives and help people to be sustainable and viable. So that was one of the things through the Commission for Women. As the chair, strengthening the relationship between the Commission and the Maryland Women's Heritage Center, because that was important. I remember when the Heritage Center was birthed as the first of its kind in the nation.
Right.
And I continue to advocate for this center everywhere and wherever I go, because if we don't advocate for ourselves, who will? And I think the 2016 election said a lot about the role and the place of women in American society.
What are some of the messages that you share with younger women, diverse younger women, from Baltimore but in other places across the country, that kind of provides that advocacy, that support? What do you want them to know that you maybe didn't know when you were in high school or younger?
That's an interesting question. You know, I often think about, and I had great role models in my family, but that's not the same as having women who pour into you when you're young and see that. So for me, it's important to help young women to understand that there's nothing that they cannot do. And, you know, we hear a lot about STEM, which is really important, but there are other things. And I tell young people, find what you love, what you have passion around, and do that, because that's probably the greatest gift you can give back to the world. I believe that we were all created for a specific purpose, and that when we identify that and go into it with all we've got. And the reason I bring that up, when I was in high school, thinking about, oh, what will I go to college and do? And I wanted to major in communications. I would say to my mother, I'm going to be the next Oprah Winfrey.
Oh.
Well,
Not a bad goal.
I didn't think so. I'm going to go major in communications. And my mother, very pragmatic, said to me, oh, that's fine. You can go and do that and stand in the unemployment line with all the other communication majors. And I thought, wow,
Well, that's
burst
the
my
teacher's
bubble.
right.
You know, and so in many respects, life has come full circle. And I have no regrets for the decisions I made then, because I can sit here today and see how they have prepared and equipped me to be where I am today. Coming full circle, I now spend my time as an executive leadership coach, and I do, you know, so I coach executives and leaders, and primarily women, but I also do some pro bono coaching and mentoring of young women, something I've always done. And so younger women who want to enter politics, helping them to understand that, yes, that is doable.
Do you work with Emerge Maryland as well?
I haven't, I'd love to, but I've served on a panel a couple of times talking about what does it take for women to lead. And leading isn't always as the candidate. It can be as the campaign manager. It can be another function within a campaign. It can be leading whatever they do. I think the importance here is helping young women to see themselves in roles that no one has affirmed for them. That's something that they can do.
Do you ever take any time off, and what's the Helen like to do to sort of recharge? Is there any recharging that ever has time to take place?
I'm working on doing more of that. But for me, recharging is about taking time to rest, to read. I love to read, to reflect, to journal. And I love doing it in warm, tropical places.
Oh, of course.
You know, there are people who go to the islands and, places like that, and they're this. No, I want to get up, put my swimsuit on, have a little breakfast, lay out by the ocean, lay out by the pool with a good book, a little music, and do nothing. You know, so it's difficult finding good travel companions because you're like, but don't you want, nah. You know, the first few days, I want to just be a vegetable. But it's important, and, you know, so some of the things I'm looking at doing these days is becoming an author, writing. And I've done some writing over the years. In fact, I recently got in the mail the official certificate from the Library of Congress that my dissertation has been recorded as a copyrighted work.
Very nice.
And I thought, oh, I'm an author.
Nice.
I'm in the Library of Congress. There you have it.
What was your topic, by the way?
Oh, my topic was a social justice ministry, faith and politics as two sides of the same coin.
Interesting. Fits you perfectly. Given that thesis, again, what would be the message to young women or girls as it relates to that balancing act of faith and politics?
Well, two fields that are very male-dominated. Two fields that much of the direction and policy is determined by men. That impacts women far greater than it impacts men. And yet there are two areas where women comprise the majority of the constituency group. And so we need more women to lead, to have a voice and a seat at the table. And it's not about usurping the position of men, but to add to the decisions that are made and how they impact our families, our girls aspiring to be women, to lead, to live, and to have their contributions counted and noted.
While we've been talking today, I heard a lot of messages of successes, of changes, of course, but maybe about a time that you didn't succeed the first time. Maybe there was a little bit of failure and maybe it took more persistence than you may have thought. So tell us a little bit about that, perhaps.
I will. You know, it's interesting that you ask. We often don't think about our failures, or let me put it this way. I don't dwell on my failures. But I do know that they have propelled me to continue going forward. And so what comes to mind when I hear you ask that question is the role of resiliency, bouncing back. And I've certainly had my share of challenges, private and public. And I'm still here. And I'm still moving forward. So something's working. And so it's that inner strength that has supported me, as well as a support system, a family, friends, who are those go-to people when I need it. You know, I think when I think back over, you know, there have been jobs I wanted that I didn't get, and I felt like, oh, but it was the perfect job for me.
Right.
You know, what happened? And I think as I've grown and matured, I've been able to accept disappointments of things that I wanted that didn't happen as not really being for me.
In the long run, maybe not,
In the long run. And there's a saying that when life closes a door, God opens a window. And so I've been the kind of person that's always looking for that window that's opening when a door is closing.
Seizing that opportunity.
Seizing the opportunity and not allowing it to get the better of me. And then reflecting back on, okay, what could I have done differently? How will I go forward to be more of who I am? And understand it. Everyone's not going to like me. Everyone's not going to dislike me. And finding that place in life that, you know, I think I always know when it's a good fit and keep going forward. But I think that it's a process, it's a learning. And a lot of my clients that I coach, I find, and I coach mainly women, helping women find their voice, their strength, and themselves is powerful. And it's empowering. And so that's a lot of the work I do when I work with women. along with balance and getting unstuck, because it's very easy to find ourselves in a rut or unable to move forward. And what I love about coaching, as I coach others, I also have coaches.
You learn, right, sure.
So I take my own advice. I get a coach.
Right. Well, I think for our generation, but also I think so many of the young women too, we still think we're supposed to do all this. And we have, probably you like me, we have issues of balance. So that do as I say, not as I do in some cases, I'm sure. But it's how do we help through the coaching? It sounds like you give young women or women permission to not do everything all at one time, because we can't keep it up, and we don't need to.
Yes.
But we're not failing if we don't do all that all
No.
the time. So that's been a hard message for sometimes people, I think, to internalize.
Yes.
It has been for me.
Superwoman is a myth.
Yes, absolutely.
There's
Right.
no such thing, and to aspire to be that is saying, I want to lose myself. And so it is important to find time to slow down, to be still, and to hear.
You mentioned before that Oprah was one of your role models in terms of both career pathways, but she's been very open about some of her struggles as well. So if Oprah were sitting with you today, what would you ask Oprah as a message or a parallel to your life or a parallel to your career? What would you like to hear from Oprah today?
I would love to hear from Oprah. Like Oprah, I've never married. Me like Oprah, I've never had children. And how has life sustained you to go on, to go forward, to pursue, and be happy. And then the other thing is, what's next on the horizon? Not for the world, but for self-fulfillment.
For the person, right? So Helen, it's been great talking with you today. Are there any last thoughts you'd like to share with us?
There are. I sit here today and I think about the transition that my life finds me in right now, and it was largely precipitated by my health. It's all good. For years, I have always said that our greatest wealth is in our health, and I firmly believe that. And as women, we often put ourselves last.
Yes.
At the end of the line, the back of the queue, let's take care of everybody, lottie-dottie, everybody, and then if there's anything left, I'll see about me.
Right.
When I came in, you were saying, gosh, you look so good. Well, you know what? I can remember one of my greatest challenges was my weight. And I remember my doctor saying to me, he wanted to put me on high blood pressure medication. And I did not want to, I'm very medication averse, prescription meds averse.
Right.
And I said, no, I'm going to do this the old-fashioned way. And for more than 10 years now, I have maintained a weight loss of 40 pounds.
I knew it was about that, yeah.
40 pounds. And there are people who don't ever remember me as being larger. But all that to say, it wasn't so much about what I would look like as much as it was about my ability to live. Because without my health, I have nothing. All the dreams, aspirations, plans are cut short without my health. And so this lovely pink scarf I have on is a constant reminder to me of the family, the friends, the colleagues.
What is the word that's here, too?
It's warrior. So this is the warrior scarf that Ford Motor Company came out with a few years ago for breast cancer. And I wear this scarf a lot these days. And I'm really a red girl, not that much of a pink girl, but it's like, well, pink's not such a bad color.
That's a nice fuchsia. It's not exactly pink, so you're okay. You're okay.
But I wear it as a constant reminder to me that how fragile life is, and that we need more women in decision-making, policy-making, legislative-making places to improve our health, the health of our children, the health of our families, the health of our communities, our nation, and the planet. I just believe that women get it differently. We get it differently. And so, health is our wealth.
Well, Helen, thank you for being here today, but I also wanted to personally thank you for being on the board of the Maryland Women's Heritage Center and spreading our message throughout Baltimore, but also more importantly across Maryland and the world. So is there anything you want to share about your experience with us or other messages?
I do. I am honored to be a part of the board of the Women's Heritage Center. First of all, the fact that it was the first of its kind in the nation. Secondly, it's a museum that tells our story, her story. And there was a wise woman who once told me that her story is a very integral part of his story.
Right.
Or history that's often forgotten, minimized, or diminished. And so having this place and space to impact, you asked about girls, education, and how that is something that has been stopped in this current administration. And it just speaks to the need for our voices to be heard in places of power, to have impact, to create equity and inclusion for all voices. But in my interest, our voices as women, because we do matter. We are wonderful contributors, and our nation would not be what it is without women.
Absolutely. Helen, you mentioned that one of your current roles is you're serving as a life coach, particularly for women. Who are you doing that with, or can you share that information with others in case they might like to talk with you about your being their
I'd
coach?
love to.
Sure.
I'd love to. And so the name of my firm is Dr. Helen Holton and Associates, and we do executive and leadership coaching, facilitation, consulting, speaking. But you can reach us at drhelenholton.com, and that's Helen, Helen, at Dr. Helen, Helen, Holton, HOLTON.com. And there you'll find all the information where you can reach out to us, connect with us, and see what we're doing. And I've started blogging. One of the things I realized after leaving office is that I lost my voice in being the voice of the people.
So you're sort of reinventing yourself as well.
I'm reinventing myself. I'm finding space in the communication portal of the cyber world to have my say.
Great. Yes. Well, congratulations on your next step.
Thank you.
Thank you for all you've done in the past and you're doing currently. We wish you well on your next phase of her story. Helen Holton.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for being here today.
My pleasure.